You also hear a lot of people saying, oh, like Gen Z has all these problems with like socializing. And it's like, I mean, they do, but they also don't at the same time. I think they're also being told that they have a problem with socializing. And so therefore they're kind of, our generation is kind of accepting like, okay, well, that's just who we are then.
All right, welcome back to the Josh Lustig podcast. Today I have an awesome guest. Her name is Georgia. She goes to BSU, Boise State University, graduating next week. Super excited about that. And also is the leader of the advertising club on campus and is very involved with advertising agencies here locally in Boise. Excited to get her take on a lot of what's going on in this generation. So anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, okay, I am intrigued. So you are in some leadership positions right now. How did you get into the whole advertising club leader, dealing with a bunch of advertising agencies, like real business owners in the real entrepreneur space? How did you kind of get into that? And, why is it such a passion for you?
Yeah, honestly, it was a happy accident. And basically I was kind of going through college. I was about a sophomore and I really was just looking for any way to just get through college. So I kind of landed on this one class. We call it Marketing 402. And it was like, I think it's creative immersion or something like that. And I saw that it was like 6 to 8:45 on like Monday nights. I'm like, great. I probably don't even have to show up. I was just super lost and kind of like just cruising, like not really having any direction, but just knowing that like this was just what I was doing in the moment, was just going to school.
Like in a career or like life in general?
Just life in general.
Yeah,
like I was
like,
just cruising, not a lot of passion or anything.
Yeah.
So I get into class and basically we kind of get the first day pitch of like, this is going to be one of the most intense classes you've probably ever done. I'm like, crap. And from then on, if you're not familiar with it, this was the National Student Advertising Competition. And so a lot of schools across the nation make it a course because of all the work that goes into it. You should get credit for it. So
it's a competition.
It's a competition, but you also
club,
get...
but it's also class credits.
Yes, exactly. And I just stumbled upon it again because I was just looking for an easy way out. Yeah. So this competition is basically you're coming up with a campaign pitch for a major client. So the first year I did it was Tide. Second year I did it was AT&T. And Tide,
like the
laundry
detergent. Soap. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
That's interesting. So that company, private company, large company, Tide, AT&T, they go, hey, we get some advertising out of this. Is there some kind of like award at the end?
Definitely.
Like some kind of cash prize to your club or something, or how does that work?
Yeah. So it starts like at a district level and then you graduate to the semifinals and then the finalists. So the people who make it to the finals, they get flown to wherever nationals is.
Nice.
This last year it was in Salt Lake and I believe this year it was in Pittsburgh. And so you kind of get like full paid expenses to go up. I think it's the top 7 teams do their final pitch in front of all of these like top dog agency owners and everything like that. And then the winner gets like a cash prize.
That's pretty cool. So all these different clubs from different schools, like BSU versus Nevada or something. There's a bunch of different, colleges and you're competing against other colleges. Oh,
yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it starts like they have to start at the district level. So basically like our district 11, we send one representative to represent our district to semifinals. And then it's the top 7 districts. Some districts can send up to 2 because they have more schools, but that's kind of how.
So I interrupt you. I'm just super curious about the structure. But continue on. So you guys went through this competition.
Yes. So I went through this whole thing. And again, like I didn't have any direction. My major was marketing, but I was kind of like, being Gen Z, digital and social media was just kind of like something that we all kind of gravitated towards at some point. Yeah. So I kind of was just going with it in the moment and started to really dig into this campaign, getting really involved with it. And we pitched. It went really great. We placed 3rd in our district. So we didn't move on to semifinals, but we were like super proud of like the work that we did.
Yeah.
And then something that our district does specifically is we have an ambassador program. So basically we send someone from our district, no matter if their team makes it to finals or not, we still send them to nationals. They watch all the pitches, they learn, and then they come back and they record or do like a live stream of what they learned.
Nice, smart.
So since it was in Salt Lake, we were able to send 2. It was myself and another student, Gabe Foster, from George Fox University. And we went, and basically we kind of were like, okay, what's going on here? Everyone's got copywriting, advertising, all these different majors that like my school didn't have. I mean, we have marketing, we have business administrative, different things like that, but we didn't have anything advertising specific. And I started to really get into this. And so Gabe and I created the Collegiate Council, which when that was happening, we were also looking for new officers for the ad club at Boise State. So it kind of felt natural to kind of do both because I was so involved with all these other schools.
And hold on for a second. So you're saying, okay, so there's copywriting, you know, for those people that don't know, like copywriting is just the words you use on ads. So we run a lot of Facebook ads in our insurance agency and other places, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on advertising. And it's like the words you have on the page. It's the, you know, actual words on your ad. Then you have like the actual content, the images, the videos, that kind of stuff. So you're saying some schools have better programs for that than others, where they're like, hey, we're bringing in copywriting experts on how do you persuade someone to buy your product through words. And you're like, we have some of that, but it's more at your school. It's more maybe old school textbook stuff rather than like modern, updated like specific classes for that, or like break that down for me.
So there are a little bit different, and not to say that necessarily one system is like for sure the winner like program way to do it. Other schools, for example, will have both semesters, fall and spring. They'll have more than one advisor, and they'll have specific like job roles. Like you're going to be the copywriter, you're the creative director, you like, this is your goal, this is your job. And then like what in an advertising agency is like an account manager, which is someone who like deals with the clients and like makes sure that they truly understand what the client's looking for. You have somebody who is constantly tracing back through the case study the client provided and is making sure that it's checking off all the boxes. So a lot of schools who have been within the program have like something set up like this. Whereas with some schools, especially in the West Coast, who maybe are just smaller schools, we have like one semester, one advisor, they're managing everybody. And there's not a lot of background context on like how to get things started. And so we're kind of at a disadvantage with timeline, but then also just like structure. So part of the Collegiate Council is all of the members of our district are coming together to say, what are you doing? What's working for you? But also on a club level, because you don't have to be in the course to participate in the campaign. You just have to be a part of the club. So it's bringing those students in as well.
That's so smart, because like something that's helped us, you know, in our business success is really just the idea that we don't reinvent the wheel. Somebody else has already figured it out. How do you, like, that's been such a game changer for me. That's why I love events, is you go somewhere and you listen to 2, 3, 4, 5 people that have done what you want to do, tell you this is exactly how to do it, you know, and don't reinvent the wheel. This is the path that we took. Here's the obstacles, here's the failures, and here's, you know, some of the lessons we learned. So, and I think that's really smart. You're bringing those together in the college setting.
Oh, 100%. Well, it's just, I mean, when we had our district competition my first year, nobody talked to each other. It was supposed to be a networking event. And everyone was so stressed about the competition that it was like, we missed this amazing opportunity. And I agree with you. Like, events are so important to learn from each other, but also like you have to network to also be able to get somewhere. And so that was also part of the reason we wanted to do this council, is it's because I would like to have a familiar face and be like, oh, I know this school. Like, they're doing this and this and this. And like, they had this great event with their ad club and like things are really going great. This last year, when we had our district's competition after starting the Collegiate Council, the amount of networking and just conversations people were having, it was incredible. The amount of people who were coming up to me and like, oh my gosh, hey, like, it's so great to finally meet you. It was like, took it to a whole other level. And so,
what do you think the change is? Do you think that people before, is it like a skill set thing? Like, I'm nervous to go talk to people I don't know? Or do you think it was just like the wrong environment? Because I'm trying to figure out some things about like Gen Z, and we've done a few of these interviews with some young men from some fraternities, really awesome, some awesome guys. You might even know them. You're one of the first ones that I've got to talk to from like a female perspective in that same world. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what are you seeing on the social dynamic side of things, the challenges, the good things? You know, there's a lot of technology use right now. What are some of the challenges like this generation, in your opinions, facing in that setting, like networking, communication, that kind of stuff?
For sure. I think, and this is something that we kind of have to pitch to some of the clients we've worked with, because they want to target Gen Z. Gen Z is like, there's such a big range. So you've got like 12-year-olds right now, and then you have like, I think it's 27 or 28-year-olds right now. And COVID did play a part in that. And a lot of people want to talk about like the social aspects that COVID had on everything.
Yeah.
But you can't really pinpoint it to how it affected a certain demographic unless you really dive into like closer to their age range. Right. So like for me, COVID hit when I was like halfway through high school. So like I kind of have already figured out like the social aspect and like how to balance both the education, a job, and social. So as COVID was kind of still trekking on a couple of years after, and I'm like getting into my senior year, I was able to still kind of navigate and pick up from that.
Sure.
But then you have people who were like in elementary school who are like still figuring out how to balance both. And so I think if you talk about like the personality types, when you talk about maybe like a sales perspective, you have like the avoiders, you have like the confronters, the people who, you know, kind of want to see both sides. Mm-hmm. I would say you see a lot more avoiders now. And that's why I think when it comes to networking settings, people like are just, they're not sure of how to go about doing it, or they're not, I guess there isn't much of an awareness of like, it's okay to have an awkward conversation. But it's like, if you start having more awkward conversations, they'll start to get less awkward. Yeah. So I would say like for my specific age group, in terms of like a social setting, I think it's hard because you also hear a lot of people saying, oh, like Gen Z has all these problems with like socializing. And it's like, I mean, they do, but they also don't at the same time. I think they're also being told that they have a problem with socializing. And so therefore they're kind of, our generation is kind of accepting like, okay, well, that's just who we are then. But I think when it comes to these social settings, having with the collegiate council specifically, that helped because it was like, okay, now you have the leaders of every school who know each other and they know how to network with like other people.
That's interesting. I like what you say about sometimes the label somebody gives a whole group of people. Certain people wouldn't even have the problem, but they took it on because they were told they do have it. I think it's something very important to remember. And the way I'm looking at it is I believe Gen Z as a whole. So I'm at the very oldest. I'm 28. Yep. I'm the oldest Gen Z, almost a millennial. And so everyone that's younger than me. And I'm looking at, kind of our generation on down. And I believe that because of the amount of information from such a young age, this generation has the greatest ability and like potential of any generation in history.
I agree.
Who else had AI at their fingertips?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess you could get a little conspiracy theory maybe somewhere along the way. But anyway.
The Egyptians.
I digress. We won't talk about pyramids in this podcast today. But, if you go back, you're like, okay, who had the amount of information, the amount of opportunity, the amount of connection? 100%. It's easier than ever to start a business. But then also with that comes the kryptonite of our generation, which is very difficult to focus. I don't care who you are. It is not just us. It's everybody that has a cell phone right now.
Sure.
Very difficult to focus on one thing at a time. The distraction is out of, off the charts. And the anxiety is off the charts for a lot of people. Not everyone, but for a lot of people because of we have so much potential, so many open doors, but how do I choose which one to go through? I'm being told every day all this stuff in all my social media reels and content, how to live life, but yet life seems a little harder to actually implement than what they're saying. And I think this causes a tension. And I think the ones that are going to lead this generation are the ones having conversations like this, saying, how do we balance that? How do we use the technology? How do we do that? But also not let it take over our life. So I don't know. What are you seeing on the technology side? I'm really interested. Are you seeing that some people navigate it really well, other people don't? Are you seeing like the stereotypical everyone sitting around, on their phones instead of talking? Is it just like kind of the group that you run with? I'm just really curious, like what's actually going on in college right now?
From an AI standpoint, I would say the use of it to help with like academic purposes, very high. I mean, I could be sitting in class and the person in front of me is doing the quiz that's due this week, and it's just like ChatGPT is on like the other like split screen. So I do see AI working a lot, and that does kind of worry me a little bit because it's like, it's making it really easy to kind of coast through school, like kind of how I talked about, like that was kind of where I was before I landed into all of this. And it's like that temptation of just kind of falling back into that is like, it's there. And it's just like, okay, using AI to like do whatever. However, I will say some students know how to use it right, which is like, yes, you can come up with the ideas, have it articulate it for you, because it's like, it's an amazing tool. I mean, we got the calculator, an amazing tool. We got the computer. That's an amazing tool. People started, using that in ways that you could consider unethical. But with AI, it's the same thing. You're kind of given a choice of like, you could use it in an unethical way of like, what is your work and like the stuff that you've done. Or it's like, okay, this is my idea. Make it sound pretty, because it's like, this is the most efficient way to make it sound pretty, but learn something from it. And so I think in terms of like AI sense, it's definitely there. And I see like a variety of the ways it's being used.
Yeah, like it's kind of like it's a tool like anything, probably.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that it has a moral positive or negative. It's just it's a tool. Like you give somebody a hammer, you can build a house with it, or you can go do some damage to someone's property with it. That's probably it. Yeah, that's probably a good point. Okay, I'm curious about something, and I'm kind of I get on a personal level with everybody. You have a lot of ambition, obviously, in a good way, and you're a leader, and you're out here and you're moving and shaking. I'm curious, are you wanting to get married someday, have kids? Yes, no? Have you thought about that? What are your thoughts on that whole family?
100%. And I would say, like, for many women out there, at least with the people that I've talked to, thinking more about like those goals of like when you're going to have kids, when you're going to get married, that is like right next to kind of the career goals aspect. Like that is something that kind of almost has to be planned first before you can figure out where career could possibly fit in. So like getting married, 100%, having kids, 100%. I mean, I'm already kind of like hoping for like late 20s. So my boyfriend and I, we've been together for almost a year. So it's like
awesome.
Chop. No, I'm just kidding.
Why does this not have a ring on it?
Kidding.
Well, send him in next. I'm really good at getting young men that know they love someone to propose to their girlfriend, because I just say, you need to propose if you're going to keep this person, and I pressure them into. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
But send him in. I'll set him straight.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so how do you balance that? So like as a woman, what's your plan? Obviously you haven't been there yet, so you don't know. I don't expect you to know. But like, do you have some ideas around like, it seems like half the world is saying you shouldn't, get married late, have kids late. You need to be well established. Do you believe that side of things? Or do you believe like, hey, when it's the right timing, jump in, have the kids, figure it out later, maybe go part-time, maybe go be stay-home mom? What are your thoughts on kind of that discussion?
I would say there's a lot of factors that kind of go into it for me personally of kind of deciding that. So obviously there's what my parents did. They had my sister and I relatively in their early 20s. And so for that, there was kind of just the way that panned out for them, and where they were career-wise as well. They were both getting out of college. Like it was very go, go, go. Yeah. But then, you also see people who are, having kids in the late 20s, early 30s, and that really works out for them as well. For me personally, I want to be able to be in a situation where it's like very planned, which doesn't always happen, of course. You can only plan so much in this world. But for me, I want to be able to, when I have kids, to spend as much time with them as possible. And a lot of people talk about like the work-life balance. For me, a lot of people are like, oh, work from home, remote, so you can be around the kids. Not my cup of tea. When I'm with my kids, I don't want to be getting a million texts blowing me up of like, oh, you need to continue to manage this. And like, if I'm going to be with my kids, I want to be 100% with my kids. But when I'm at work, I want to be 100% at my work. So for me, it's like kind of managing both. It's like, okay, if this is what I know that I want for my kids, how do I get it so I'm still making sure that they have a lot of time, and it's not like I personally don't want to have like my kids going to like daycare all day and then, other than school, of course, but going to daycare all day and then like seeing me for a couple hours. So it's like in those early years, it's planning out like, okay, being home when they're young, but then when they go to school, then it's being able to actually go and be in person and stuff like that.
You won't get any arguments from me. We're about to release the first book that I wrote, which is called The True Freedom Equation. And it's like, you need to have both time and money. A lot of people will pursue money and they'll get it. But then they're, hey, my classic example is, hey, you're at a Hawaii vacation. You're at the pool at this really nice resort. It was a $30,000 vacation with you and your family. It's just gorgeous. You're at the Four Seasons,
for sure.
But then you're stuck on your laptop poolside all day and taking phone calls. Is that actually freedom, or is that just a high-paying prison? that, okay, now I'm just doing the same thing, working from a fancier location.
Mm-hmm.
Your kid still says, daddy, 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 or mommy, mommy, mommy. And that's heartbreaking. And so the real goal, in my opinion, if you're looking for actual freedom, is to not only have the money, but also to help take some of that money and convert it into time.
Yeah.
And saying we need to be able to have both. I don't believe in the gurus on Instagram these days that say, go work, just take the next 10 years of your life, nose to the grindstone, don't have a family, don't have kids. You'll wake up in 10 years so happy because you'll be a millionaire. Go do it right now, 24/7. Don't sleep, don't eat. And I'm just like, they're missing the point. You're missing the point of life.
Yeah.
If it was just about money, then everyone that has money would be super happy. And so it's obviously not about that. And it's like, if you do have kids right now, and that is your, adopting that philosophy of 80, 90-hour work weeks and you never see your family, kudos to you for being a hard worker. Can't fault your work ethic, but they're going to learn how to live without you.
Mm.
And when your family learns how to live without you, when you don't expect them to 5 years from now or 10 years from now, when you wake up and have this epiphany that I made it, which by the way, no one ever does, but like I've made it and now it's time to spend time with my family. Don't expect your family who learned to live without you to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you're here. It's going to be like, oh, well, this is odd. It's going to feel weird. And everyone's like, you don't have a family left. So I think you're wise to think about it from that perspective. For me, one thing that's been helpful, it's a little jump in the gun for you, but one thing that's been helpful for me and my wife is saying clear boundaries on when I'm at work and when I'm not. It sounds so simple, but most entrepreneurs I talk to, they have over time, and it's so easy to do, just naturally morphed it to where there is no separation.
Yeah.
And this is a hot button topic. I'll get a lot of heat for this probably, but like, I believe in separation. I don't think that you should be taking phone calls 24/7. Like, leave the phone at work if you have to, and like go be with your family. So anyway, I resonate with what you're saying. I think you're on the right path when it comes to all that. Curious, switching gears, back to the marketing and advertising, because we've done a lot of that in our business.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? Like, is it more like traditional media, commercials? Is it learning how to do social media, like paid traffic, like Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Google ads, to push into like these online funnels? ClickFunnels is here in Boise. Is it more of that side of things? Is it like organic content, like podcasts and stuff like we're doing now, like social media, organic content? Like, what are you guys actually physically learning about and like implementing, if that makes sense?
Through like the ad club or through like the NSAC course?
Both.
Okay. So for the NSAC course, it's kind of based off of whatever the students want to do. So it's kind of student led. They decide, typically these clients want to pitch to Gen Z. So it's kind of easy for Gen Z to understand, what they kind of want to hear.
Yeah.
And a lot of that will come with the research. We've seen a variety over the different types of campaigns. We did, semi-professional commercials. We got an award for the best spot ad when we did it this last year. And so you see commercials, organic stuff. We did on the street interviews, which that semi panned out for us. We did an approach with Gen Z that was a little bit more dirty humor, and the judges didn't love that. It was kind of a risky game to play, but so we've done kind of that organic content. I will say, with my experience through like my career versus school, I've learned about like the Meta, Google, all the background SEO stuff through a career and hands-on experience versus my academic experience. Yeah. And I would say that a lot of the students that I've worked with these different campaigns on are finding the same thing as they're getting put into these jobs of like, okay, well, this is like what we need you to do. We need you to go and be buying these ad spaces on Google and Meta. And so that's new experiences that they're learning. And it's not necessarily something that we've talked about yet with our ad club.
So you have some experience actually being like a media buyer, like where you go and you'll place ads on Meta, you'll like get in the back end of the platform, the ad manager, run ads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also with like any other platforms other than Facebook, and everyone calls it Meta now, but
yeah. Meta in specific for me personally, and like same with Google. I know like other students are doing like Reddit is like having a huge comeback right now, which is really interesting. And Twitter is kind of like, or X now, sorry, is kind of like a hit or miss for, I feel like some companies just based off of kind of what they want to signal to their demographic and their target audience.
Yeah.
So you don't see as many people really talking about that. For the ad club specific, kind of what we talk about is how do you balance the creative side and the strategy side? So kind of what we're seeing amongst the different colleges at our campus between the visual arts versus our business is you have a bunch of creatives who can make these compelling graphic designs, these like film students who can make these awesome commercials. Like they know all the steps behind that, but it's like, okay, how do you become your own freelancer? That is like something that they don't know how to like build up. Yeah. Whereas then you have these marketing students, these business students who want to do more graphic design. They want to do more of the creative side, but they also still want to have the strategy background. So they're kind of put in this weird position of like, okay, well, specifically for our school, where do you go? And like, how do you kind of navigate through like a major that makes sense for this? And so we kind of help bridge the gap for both sides, I guess.
That's kind of interesting. What do you personally enjoy more? I mean, just like, obviously you have a little bit of background in both.
I love the creative side, 100%. Now my skill set, because I went more of the strategy business route, all the skills and experience I have with like a quote unquote graphic design is not going to be to the level as if I were to outsource to someone else. So I would say like my strong suit is strategy, but like overall maybe creative director of like understanding where we should go, but having someone else truly create it.
And that's on like ads and like also like organic content, like social media stuff and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always talked about, taking my own brand to a whole other level through social media and stuff like that. But it was so much easier said than done, right? Because you see so many people trying to do it and the barrier is pretty low for that, all things considered. Yeah. But to actually excel, it's like you kind of have to put yourself out there. And personally, I haven't made that next jump yet. Yeah. But that's definitely.
And monetizing is a different story as well.
So true.
And so something that I've seen is we've been mentoring some young people. We've grown a business pretty well, and it's like my strong suit is the monetization and the business owner side of things. And so like bringing that flavor into mentoring some younger people is like my best advice is build those skills on the side while you're learning. Like you get paid to learn by joining somebody else's organization that has money, right? So you go out there and you spend a couple of years learning from somebody else, adding value to their company. I think that's the best way to start. And then you can be doing your stuff on the side and building that up, as a passion project. Because once you turn your passion project into something that has to make you money, now it's actually not so fun anymore. I had a client 100%. That was wanting to quit his insurance company. He was making about $200,000 a year in his insurance small business, and he was doing well for himself. And he's like, I want to do a podcast, And I'm like, well, could you, with your current living expenses, stop doing insurance and just focus on the podcast? And he said, no, because of the business expenses and personal expenses, whatever. I said, well, it'd be a shame if you start a podcast because you want to do it, but then you have to monetize your podcast. You have to monetize your social media channels because now it's stressful and now it's no longer fun.
True.
So I think, if I'm understanding right, you want to go join an organization, prove some value on the side, kind of build that up. Is that part of your plan?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that's a really good strategy.
Thank you. Yeah.
That a lot of people, everyone says if you're not an entrepreneur in today's day and age and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I kind of get sick of that a little bit. I'm an entrepreneur, so I love that message for me personally. But it's like, it's easier said than done. Like not everyone is supposed to start a business right now. Maybe like fast forward 3 years and start a business. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree. I think it really just kind of depends on the network that you have. Because I think for some people who already, if you have people that are already going to be interested in whatever entrepreneurial endeavor that you have, that are willing to kind of hop on that train, great. Some people, it's going to take that time to build up that network, especially of how you've utilized your time getting there. Like to that point where you're ready, you're like debating, oh, should I start? Should I not? My boyfriend, he's an entrepreneur. He has his own business, and he actually dealt with like the exact same thing of like, he kind of like stopped going to school. It was COVID too, so it wasn't the right time. And he's a bladesmith, blacksmith. Fully went into this, fully entrepreneur. And
Hold on, is that like metalworking? Like
like have you seen Forged in Fire?
Yeah.
So he was on there twice.
Oh,
and so
no way.
very, very proud.
So is he making like weapons and stuff? Like
some, yes. Yeah. And then he just does other like fabrication jobs, just like other cool things like that.
Cool.
But with that, I mean, his whole thing is like seeing the art behind like creating something out of nothing. And like, which I think is just so cool. But also he moved here to Idaho from Colorado, and he was trying to start something huge and like work with all these different collaborators, and like things didn't work out. And so what he kind of realized, and like I kind of got to learn that lesson through him, which is kind of what you're talking about, is like, don't make your passion like have to be everything that makes you money just so that you can like get by with rent and like all these things, especially for young Gen Zers. Like, if you have an experience like paying for your rent, paying for your utilities, your phone bill, your car insurance, everything, and that all hits you while you're also trying to start up this new thing, like you have to kind of think about those things. And so for him, it would just made sense for him to like have his passion for like half of the week and then work in something that kind of fills into that and fills another passion. And so he works at like another metal shop. And so like that works great for him because it feeds right into what he's trying to do. But also it's like, that's the stability and that's what he can have so that when it's time for him to grow and really focus in on like, this is what I want to do from a creative standpoint, there's no stress kind of pushing against him. So
otherwise it distorts your view of your passion. Yeah. So you start to change it to be like, well, to monetize this properly in his scenario, let's just say it would be like, I have to use cheaper materials. I have to go spend a bunch of time doing marketing. There's two pieces of the business. There's actually like the creative side, whatever the product is, you know, and we call it like working in the business. And then there's like working on the business. So for example, I was talking to my landscaper this morning. You know, I travel a lot, so we have somebody take care of the property. And I'm thinking, okay, here's a perfect example of a business that's like, okay, someone's mowing the lawn, someone's spraying the weeds, someone's doing all that stuff. That's working in the business. At some point, he hired 2, 3, 4, 5 guys over time, and he stopped mowing the yard as much, and he started focusing on how do I communicate better with my clients, get more clients, focus on the marketing of it, dealing with all the vehicle maintenance and all the stuff that's actually on the business. Sometimes the creative person doesn't actually want to be the business owner, right? Or doesn't know how. And so if we can give ourselves some freedom by like having this job for stability while we're figuring out how to do all these things in the background, it gives us time to breathe without having to pay for our rent out of thin air. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So now I'll be curious to follow his channel and to like go see his stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What are some things that you've learned, you know, in these leadership roles? You know, just a couple of things or like pieces of advice that maybe mentors or professors or whoever else along the way, like what's one or two things that you'd kind of teach someone that's new to this? Like when you were a sophomore looking for, you know, some kind of meaning, like I'm just kind of floating through, I don't really know where to go. What would you rewind a couple of years ago and tell that girl?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. I would say, so a lot of the experience that I've had within this last year is when we did our competition with AT&T, I kind of helped to co-coach our team. And with that, it took some time to really get us like to a point where we were like fully as a team networked, you know, collaborating in the way that a team should. And so for me, what my strength that I found was finding out what everyone's strengths were and then being able to amplify that so that we could be such a great team. So, and I guess I've always kind of had this natural skill. And so, but what I would say is like going back to me 2 years ago or being a freshman in college is being like, maybe the academics, school to school, like what you learn in your classes isn't exactly what you're going to take from college. But what you will take is they have all these networking events on campus, off of campus, go to them. When you're in these environments, just pay attention to how you're acting, like kind of be self-aware of, you know, I'm starting to notice other people and their body language. So I can kind of pick up that, oh, there may be more of an avoider or different things like that. Take the personality test. I've taken so many personality tests, and I mean, a lot of people want to talk about like, I'm a Sagittarius, Gemini, stuff like that. That's still something that I'm not super knowledgeable about. But when it comes to like a personality test, that is like who you
Myers-Briggs, like 16 personalities. Have you been on that one before? Yep. So do you know off the top of your head which one you are?
I don't.
So I love those. I'm obsessed with them as well.
Yes.
I also like StrengthsFinder. If you've heard of that one. StrengthsFinder, have you heard of that one?
I'm not sure.
So StrengthsFinder is developed by these people. I actually got to go meet their board and stuff when I was in high school. That's awesome. Just, you know, it was through a church connection.
Cool.
But they are focused on the idea that everyone's strengths, everyone has strengths. They have a 34 listed out that they have studied and done a bunch of research on. And you get way more value out of doubling down on your strengths than trying to correct your weaknesses, especially in a workplace setting. So for example, one of mine is activator, where I like to take action immediately. I like to go out and I like to do it, even if it's imperfect. Let's go do it, right? Rather than focusing on how do I like overcome some of these weaknesses, in my day-to-day, work life? How about just doubling down on what I'm good at and trying to find people that can fill my weaknesses on our team that's their strength.
Yeah.
And so it's a really interesting, I love the personality test as well. I think that it's good to know, like, have the self-knowledge and self-awareness of what you're good at and what you're not good at, what other people are good at. I think it's a cool thing.
Well, I think to touch base specifically on Gen Z, when they're looking into going into like these interview situations, right? They're always kind of dreading that question of like, what's your strengths and weaknesses? Because I think for Gen Z, we always want to seem like, and I think for anybody that's going into an interview, of course, we want to seem perfect. But I think truly, and maybe you can testify to this as well, is like going through maybe that interview process, it's being as authentic as you can be. It's knowing, hey, you know what? I kind of struggle with communicating in this way, but I'm really trying to work towards that. So maybe you and I can kind of work together on like building that up for me, or maybe it's a skill thing. And I think with like looking at your strengths though, is it's kind of being like the kind of other generations complain about Gen Z being kind of like maybe lazy and like kind of these assumptions. But I think if Gen Z were to kind of go in and being like, yes, like this is who I am, not lazy, but like to go in and be like, yeah, these are my weaknesses. I do have a really hard time with conflict. I would really like to work towards that. And I'm going to be super transparent of like, yes, that's a weakness, but I do know all of these strengths that will totally make up for that. So like, I think for like talking about the strengths and weaknesses for Gen Z to just kind of take a minute, really understand who you are, whether it's like you have more weaknesses than strengths, like you're saying, really hone in on those strengths and like use that to your benefit, but also don't be afraid to fully, be open about those weaknesses. Yeah,
we've interviewed a lot of people over the years, the last 9 years that I've been in business, and the one thing that will turn me away from someone fastest, like the number one thing that I dislike in an interview with someone is when I ask them, what's your number one weakness? And they give like some BS answer.
Cheesy
like,
answer.
Yeah, like I don't, like basically like, well, man, I don't know. I don't really have any. Like who in the world does not have a weakness? Like it's not a thing. And so the ones I respect the most was the approach that you just said, like, hey, this is it's really hard for me to take feedback. I'll just be honest. That's one of my weaknesses. I'm working on it, and I would love your
Practice.
Feedback on how I can get better at taking negative feedback or criticism or things like that. My strength is, however, boom, 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 right?
Yeah.
And that's the way to handle an interview.
Yeah.
Is like, we think that hiding our weaknesses or even in like the content game, that's something that I had to learn. I'm still learning it.
Yeah.
Is like, you don't want to come across as some perfect human being because people are tired of that.
So tired.
People are tired of looking at the internet and going, everyone has it all figured out. We're starting to spot trends and be like, that's fake. That's fake.
Yeah.
That's fake. No one's perfect.
Be a real stinking human.
Yeah, quit trying to be such a perfect person all the time.
The first time, like my first interview that I was asked, what are your weaknesses? I had a very like funny answer. I thought that I was like so funny. I said, I have a horrible taste in music, so don't give me aux. And I, being like 15, thought like that was so funny. They laughed, and it was like, I mean, I was interviewing for a kayak and zip line tour guide. So it's like, it's a very kind of like fun role. They're like,
you could probably pull that off in that sense.
I could probably pull it off in that sense. But like, I like every interview I go into, I literally think about that moment. And I was like, well, at least it won't be that, like at least like I somehow still got the job, and I was there for like 3 years, but it was like going into strengths and weaknesses in the future, I'm like, yeah, we can't make jokes like that. We need to have like a serious comeback. But hey, if you're like just applying for a kayak tour guide, then yeah, you can use that. But
probably not the worst.
Yeah. Well, they said that they can't even play music anyways, and I was like, oh, well, that's awkward.
Yeah. But like you said earlier, you get better at awkward conversations the more you have them.
100%.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on here. It's good to get to know you and some of your insights. It's really helpful, I think, to also see one of my main takeaways is I'm kind of tired of people labeling the entire generation. Like people are saying millennials are that, millennials, no one wants to work and they all complain, blah, blah, blah. People saying that about Gen Z. there are some stereotypes that are true.
Sure.
And we'll all be honest, like there are some things that we're dealing with in this generation that others may be better at or worse at, right? But what I'm noticing is like when people say, oh, Gen Z doesn't want to work. Gen Z this, Gen Z that. The people I'm talking to are disproving that.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like you're scared of hard work. Doesn't seem like you're scared of a lot of these. You're not scared to talk to somebody else, like on the communication side of things. And I think it just is reaffirming something in me that's like, it's a lot of how you're raised and how you decide to raise yourself in your early years. Meaning like your parents have a lot to do with it. We homeschool our 4 kids. Everyone says, well, oh, aren't you worried they're not going to be socialized? The parents, if you have weird parents, you're probably going to produce a weird child until they figure out how to not be weird. You know what I'm saying?
So
but
true.
if you are social and you have people around all the time, we've got people around our house all the time and our kids are interacting with them and we go to people's houses and we joke around. They're not going to be weird socially.
Yeah.
Right? And I think we're starting to get lost. Like parents, your number one job is to be the educator, the primary educator of the children.
Yeah.
That's what being a parent is. And like, I think we're losing sight of like, yes, there's stereotypes in a generation, but it's really comes down to each individual person.
Yeah.
How are you going to handle the crazy amounts of technology usage?
Yeah.
Are you going to be on your phone 17 hours a day or 17 minutes a day? That's completely our choice, each individual person. And I'm noticing just some really amazing people like you that we're interviewing on this channel. And I just want to say thank you for your insights.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.